So, hello and welcome to my show here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. For the information that you're going to hear today, it is the opinions expressed on the show are just the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experience. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. So you know the pain, the anguish and the struggle that divorcing men and women go through? Well, there is a way to find your peace, keep your sanity, all while getting you prepared and helping you with your attorney. This can save you thousands of dollars. My name's Tina Huggins. I'm a high conflict divorce coach specialist. And before I introduce our guest speaker today, I want to talk about my show in the year 2026. I want to invite you because we're going to take a deep dive into the topic of abuse. I'm going to explore different types of abuse that we frequently know as abuse, and then we're going to get into some difficult topics such as sex trafficking. But we're definitely going to most certainly cover the silent abuse. This is the abuse that most people have in their own homes, in their own lives. I know, I did. This is an abuse that is mistakenly normalized in our lives and can lead to murder, suicide. So I invite you to join me and my guest speakers next year as we take a deep dive into abuse in all its forms. Now, just because we can hear him there in the background, we're going to introduce our guest speaker today, Howard Gershman. So before Howard became a financial advisor, Howard lived what many of us would consider the normal American dream. He had a steady job, a lovely family, bought homes, and sent his kids to college. But behind the scenes, his finances were a mess. And he didn't even know it, just like many of ours are here today. Howard was relying on people that he thought he trusted to guide him. Instead, he was sold the wrong insurance, lost money on poor investments, and watched others profit while his financial future slipped away. That wake-up call led Howard to discover Primerica. And it changed his life. He learned how money really works, not how many, but he's going to turn that little bit into many monies as we go through this. He learned how it really works, made dramatic changes, and began building a future with clarity that he was in control of. So welcome and thank you for coming on today, Howard.
Well, thanks for having me. This is really going to be awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
So yes, and poor Howard and we have been trying for a couple of months now to get this show here.
There you go.
The fact that it is here today means it's specifically for you. Because had it been designed any other way, come on, any other time, it wouldn't be Howard talking and you watching. So listen up. This is specifically for you. So, Howard, let's take a little bit deeper dive into how your little mess got you and how you found Primerica.
Sure. Well, I always like to say, so I was born at a very early age, and then went to school here, went to school there. Where should the story begin? I don't even know.
Well, we know that you had a very specific life. I love the part that you said that you were born at a very early age. A very early age.
Yeah.
So we know that you had just the normal life. You bought houses and everything. So maybe let's dive into that insurance that you bought that wasn't the right insurance.
Yeah, I had before being financial services, I had another business at the time. And it was a food service business, catering, little deli, cafe, that sort of stuff. And my background before that was actually in computer science. So I managed computer networks for defense contractors, left all that to sweep floors and make sandwiches. So clearly the career path that somebody like college graduate should have been on. Regardless of all that, so I'm the business owner. I'm supposed to know what I'm supposed to do. with money, without money, how to run a business. I didn't know any of that stuff. Of course, that never stopped me from doing anything new before, so why should this be any different? Anyway, in some other groups that I was in and involved in, I got to be friendly with some financial advisors. And I said, I don't really know much about my finances or like what's going on. I never had a financial plan done for me. So I asked, a couple of them to say, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? And ultimately what happened is over an iteration of probably could have been a couple of years. I mean, I had bought life insurance because I hear, as a parent, a business owner, you're supposed to do that. But, okay, what do I need? And one of the guys sold me whatever. Then another guy would come to a weekly meeting and say, boy, this is the stock of the week. You're not going to believe this high-tech thing. This is going to go through the roof. And he would come back week after week after week, something that was, can't miss, you know all the adjectives people use. And so I said, okay, Arnold, here's $1,000. Make me money. And of course, within like 6 months, he was gone. And so also related to the business part of the catering business I had, I said, I don't know, at least in New York here, I don't know, where are you again?
I'm in South Carolina.
South Carolina. So it's not quite as cold there as it is here in the winter. Like today, it's in the 20s outside. Anyway, the point is that I say food service business is one of the stupidest business models you can come up with. Doesn't matter whether it's a little deli, cafe, a Starbucks, or a fancy restaurant. You open the door in the morning, you start making food, or somebody does, and you hope somebody's going to come and eat it. You pretty much have no control after that. So I learned that pretty quickly. The other thing is we ended up switching and we started to do a lot of catering, weddings, bar mitzvahs, company picnics of hundreds of people. It was on some of those weekends in the summer, we would do, we would feed 1,000 people in 10 different places. So it was kind of a madhouse and a bit chaotic, but we kept it together. Anyway, the problem with the catering, at least it's a more controlled food-wise. You're only getting food if somebody wants it. So that's the good news. The problem is it's way too seasonal. So you have more expenses, more labor, more everything in the summer. And in the winter, like today, there's nobody doing a wedding outside today. So that I was talking to a friend of mine, and I'm saying, this is what I'm looking for something else to do to like fill in the gaps here, And there was a guy I knew who did mortgages. He was always successful, always seemed to be making money. And I said, so tell me about mortgages. Anyway, so he did a little bit. I never really did a mortgage, so it didn't really matter. Anyway, so I'm having this conversation with a friend of mine, Eric. He's still a good friend. He actually ended up moving to Florida. And we're having this casual conversation. Neither of us even know how we got started in the conversation. But he said something that sort of perked my interest. He said, well, this is what I'm doing. So he was a pretty successful controller of a couple of big companies. So he had a pretty extensive finance background. And he said, here's what I'm doing. And he would tell me about insurance, about debt management, about investments. I clearly didn't know anything about it because I ended up losing money from what I did. So the more he described the kinds of things he did, the more it intrigued me to say, like, I don't know any of this stuff. And I got a family and I got all kinds of stuff going on. So I said, okay, I think this is something important I should dig into a little bit more. Then we dig into what I had in stuff that I had bought for me. And it turned out that everything I had bought for me, the investment clearly, the life insurance and a couple of other things, were totally wrong for me because the guys who I bought this stuff from didn't ask me the questions that I ask people now that I know how to go about that process. So the bad news is, well, I'll say the good news is I didn't die because my family would have been in big trouble because we had the wrong kind of insurance. And to make matters even worse, just to dig the knife in and twist a little more, what I bought from them gave them the biggest commissions of the range of products, that I ended up buying. So Eric tells me, well, here's what I'm doing. We're telling people the truth. We're telling people how their finances actually work and don't work or don't work. And we move, and then we help them out to get their financial act. So I said, okay, I'm looking for something else to do. I think I can do this. And I got a story to talk about. So that was a little over 20 years ago. And now today we have hundreds of clients all over the country, millions of dollars of people's assets that we manage regularly. And we're moving forward. Really good. And that brings me to today, I guess.
So we were born at an early age, and that brings us here to today.
There we go.
So your story reminds me of a story that Dr. Phil tells in one of his books.
Oh,
Dr. Phil he lived in Colorado Springs, and since I was from Colorado, this really resonated with me. Dr. Phil, we all know, had money. This is back before he was on television, and he was doing really well for himself. He had lots of clients and doing just a great business. And he just was struggling at his financials, keeping up with them and all of that kind of stuff. So he hired a bookkeeper, and he didn't really go out and hunt for a bookkeeper. He just happened to have a conversation with his minister, and his minister says, well, that's what my wife does. So he's like, well, of course I want to hire the minister's wife to run my books.
I would do the same thing. Sure.
Who else could you trust better?
Right.
So there was a point where he ended up with a phone call, and it was one of the creditors. He had credit cards that he would pay off on a monthly basis. And the credit card company calls him and says, hey, you haven't made a payment in like 3 months. And he's looking, and it's maxed out, and there's nothing. And he's looking in his own books, and there's, money gone. So he calls the minister and asked to talk to his wife, and the minister asked a question, and I can't remember what the question was. And you can hear the minister. He just kind of basically looks at his wife. Mildred, don't tell me you did it again.
Oh my God.
I embezzled all this money from Dr. Phil. And the point that Dr. Phil was making in the book was that you have got to pay your own, learn. You've got to pay attention to your own finances. You don't have to be the bookkeeper, but you have to know how the books are kept. And then you have to have a checks and balances so that you know what's coming in and what's going out.
Absolutely.
So yeah, your story reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then you talk about food services. The one thing I spent, by the time it's going to be said and done, is probably going to be $100,000 instead of $50,000. But I spent $50,000 to take my son through culinary arts school. And of course, he's now a chef, right? And he's doing what you just said is a very difficult job. But the one thing that he learned from that school that he's going to have with him for the rest of his life is how to know how much something costs you.
Yeah.
And then understand the wait staff cost, and then the overhead cost from the rent, whatever the building. Because now although he's still cooking, he's opened up his own business, and he Cerakotes guns. And because he learned that, he has a concept, and the first thing he did is make money. His first gun, he made money, not much because he was getting a start, right? But he made money. He didn't lose money because he understood the cost of the material.
Of everything. That's great. That's great.
His
I mean,
time.
clearly I didn't learn anything in school or college or even the I guess maybe it was 10 years after, right? We're not taught any of that stuff. The two that we joke about it in our office. The two things that don't come with instructions are money and children.
And that's so true. And we go into that life insurance. I'm glad that my husband and I bought the right insurance because as I think that I lost my husband just over a year ago.
Yeah.
And it was that life insurance that helped me make my move, get my house sold, and get into the home that I
Yeah.
am in. And then find a way to work the rest of that money to where it's doing what it needs to do to help me
Good.
move forward.
Good.
So
Glad,
yeah,
I'm glad to hear a life insurance success story. We have them in our office too, but it's great to hear it firsthand.
and I can tell you just how important it is. I have my daughter-in-law that's on me to talk to my son about this. She goes, because my son's had health issues, and she's like, we don't have any health insurance.
Oh,
And when you're in your 40s, when you're in your
mm,
30s, and definitely when you're in your 20s, who needs life insurance?
yeah.
But I can tell you there's lots of 20s and 30s and
Oh, yeah.
definitely 40s, some things that die and they don't have life insurance, and they leave littles behind. My kids won't
Right.
leave littles because they won't have their own, but that's so hard on the woman or the
Well, the
father.
guy, it's right, exactly. Goes both ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when my mom died, she had some good life insurance and then she had a great savings account set up. So with that, all three of us kids were able to pay off all of our debt
Nice.
and help us to move forward. That's what permanently got me where I'm at today. It's what started me in my direction, is understanding that debt causes problems.
Hmm.
So tell us how Primerica works and what's the difference between that and just regular.
Oh, any other kind of company?
Yep.
What I particularly like, what attracted me, well, first of all, the story part attracted me, and the knowledge that Eric shared with me and how money works. What I've learned since then, though, is that many financial services companies, whether it's insurance or investments or what a variety of other kinds of things, focus on the product, whatever the product is. We have an IRA, you have life insurance, you have whatever. They focus on that particular thing because that's their product. Um, and sometimes it's a proprietary product to them, which is not necessarily bad, but that's kind of the thing. What Primerica does and what appealed to me is that we will look at a variety of things, a very big picture view of somebody's financial life. And in general, we look at life insurance. So what happens if somebody dies? What's going to happen to the family? Investments like college planning or retirement planning, or just saving to buy a house in 5 years, whatever that is. Debts, getting people out of debt. There is no, I don't know every financial services company, but for the ones that I know and you've heard of and who have commercials on TV, nobody talks about getting out of debt as the first thing to do. And actually, life insurance and emergency fund are kind of the first thing, but getting out of debt is right near the top of the list. And those are the things that we're kind of looking at, and we can align all those things. If your only product, you're the agent or you're the company, and the only product you have to offer is life insurance, even though it comes in a variety of different flavors, it's still the same, kind of thing. But if that's all you have to offer people, then what happens? Every problem somebody has, that's the way you're going to try to solve it. And a lot of times, that's not the way to solve whatever particular problem. You can't get out of debt by buying life insurance. I mean, right? So, and because we can offer a variety of different products and services to fit regular middle class everyday people, then we can usually help somebody, in some way or another. And that's a good feeling when I know I can walk into a family or Zoom into a family, right, and help them in whatever kind of issue kind of that they have.
And you're right. None of the rest of them talk about, getting you out of debt. And
Right.
getting you out of debt is the most important thing for your financial future. And
Exactly.
and because right now the only debt that I have in my case is this home that I just bought, and then I'm still paying on my son's loan for his college.
Okay.
And when I bought the house, this was the thing that I had the money to pay off that loan. I could have paid off that loan, but it didn't. And this is funny because at $50,000, I'll pay off the loan, 50,000. I'll just pay off the loan. Well, it wasn't going to help me at all in the purchase of this home. Like, how could it not help? That's, almost $600 a month more that I could pay on
Yeah.
the house, right? But I could give $20,000 to the more, pay an extra $20,000 towards the mortgage, and that would help me buy the loan and keep my and then when I said, so what if I gave the whole 50,000? Oh, it's not going to make that much difference.
Oh,
I was kind of like, I was just blown out of the water at how mortgage companies worked that, and how, I could pay off a $50,000 loan and it's not going to help me at all in the purchase of my home.
crazy, huh? I guess that's the way they do the math, So,
I was just like blown out of the water. And then when I offered to do a 50,000, more above what I was going to pay, which would have been, I would have paid half the house off. It wasn't going to change the amount I was paying by more than just $200. That was
okay.
it.
All right. Well, sometimes that matters to people, but
I just felt that, okay, well, I'll reserve the money and then I can set it aside, and make interest on that money, which that interest, along with the rest of the money that I had set is is a large amount, which was more than the, amounts that I was going
yeah.
to save. And so I felt like, okay, well, that's a better direction to go, at least at this point,
Hmm.
until I get, on my feet and get solid.
Yeah, so you really got to look at every situation is a little bit different and depends where the money's coming and going and all that kind of stuff. So, but one of the other things we point out is that life insurance is we like to call it in fact the analogy I kind of use is think of the other kinds of insurance you have, like you have health insurance or hospital insurance or collision insurance on your car, right? Right. So those are the bad things that happen, and you have that insurance. So you crash your car, you fix the car, and then you move on, or you get a new car, whatever the story is. But so for life insurance, right? What really has to happen? You have
Have to
you
die.
have to die. So they right, but nobody's going to buy death insurance. So
Right.
they call it life insurance. Isn't that nice? So that's another. It's a terminology thing and a mindset kind of thing. But really, the reality is not that it's life or death insurance. It's really income replacement insurance, which is what saved you and bazillions of other people, right? So when somebody dies, as good of an employee they might be, right? The employer's not going to pay the family, if that person's not there. So
Right.
yeah, and that's why we call it income replacement insurance. And the way to think about it is who or what is dependent on your income, right? So if you have kids, the mortgage, the whatever is dependent on your income, then you need that kind of life insurance, income replacement insurance.
And because I deal in divorce, that is one of the things that we make sure is in
Yeah,
the orders
exactly.
is that they have life insurance, and they have to have a look at that I think it's every 3 years. They have to do a look at that is
Okay.
to see, how much they can drop that insurance, but they have to be able to pay if they would to die, that life insurance will cover everything that they owe for
Oh, the child,
support and maintenance
and child support, all that stuff. Yeah, yeah,
to the time the kids are of age.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. I've done a couple of those actually. And
Mm.
one thing we did earlier this year, there was a guy who came to us as kind of a referral, and he was paying way too much for the life insurance that he was required to have. And we just changed that around, got him the same dollar amount, saved him, I don't know, $50, $75 a month. It was a
Wow.
significant amount in his budget. So that was, that actually worked out for him. But that's the kind of idea. You're right.
Yeah. And so if, a person coming to you, what's the first steps that you do with a client?
Good question. So first of all, we have a nice conversation. We try to build a little emotional rapport. It's like going to the doctor or going to you for the first time. Like, what do we do? We just want to get to know somebody, get a little bit of the background. We don't think, and it could take multiple, doesn't usually take multiple meetings, but it could take maybe two or so to really understand where somebody's coming from and what their real issue is. And sometimes we got to be like a Dr. Phil and try to, listen between the lines and really understand what's going on. When they say something, don't take it at face value. We just say, well, what do you mean by that? And then we try to move forward from there. There's a couple I have working with now. They're both. Oh, she's a realtor. He works for a health insurance company in like an admin kind of a role. He's not a salesperson. They make decent money, not lots. I think between the two of them, they probably make not even 150,000 between the two of them. But they're right mid-40s, no kids, and they say, I didn't ask why, but no kids and don't plan to have anything. And they didn't really hide the fact very much, but they had between the two of them $70,000 in credit card debt and a car loan, no mortgage. They're renting from, I think her family has a house on the property they live on, something like that. So, and this is something that we help people a lot, is that we had a big list of all the debts, and we have a system called debt stacking, where you can, we pay off the debts in a very specific order. Pay this one on this day, this day, this day, and then we combine the payments. And anyway, they could be out of debt. I can't remember the number now. It was like, I think it was something, so this $70,000 was killing them because they could barely make the minimum payments, but they were doing it. So they weren't really falling behind. They just could never really get ahead. And that was their mindset, that we're going to die with this debt somehow. And when we put it all together, it turned out that they could pay off all of that debt except the car loan, because that was the biggest one that they had, in 3 years without adding any more to the payments. And this happens all the time. It's crazy that when you do the math, it makes more obvious when you can see the math. But when you think you have a mortgage that's 30 years, now that we're talking 50-year mortgage, it was absurd.
Yeah, I heard that recently.
That's crazy. But anyways, yeah. And the wife was thrilled. She said, oh my God, like you could see it. Oh my God, we can actually do this. The husband was more skeptical. Said, how can we do that? That's crazy. How can we do that? We haven't gotten very far yet. So they're just kind of getting it all figured out. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change much for the first year, because that'll be the first debt will get paid off. And now we'll get some extra. Now they got some extra to kind of move forward with. So they got to be disciplined, and she's definitely motivated to do it. So we'll see how far they get.
Yeah. And so just, in my lifetime, I have read so many different ways on how do you get out of debt, how you da 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 da. So some of the things that I've heard is like take the lowest debt, pay it off first, and then take that extra that's left and add it to the next and go on.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Exactly.
And then I've also heard and then I'll let you go through it. I've heard that you want to take the debt that you are paying the most on in interest. And in a lot of cases, that's the one that's the most difficult for people to actually add the extra amounts to.
Right. So you're right. So that's the one with one is called we call it the snowball method, which is could be the same thing actually. Snowball method, where you take the one with the smallest balance first, regardless of the interest rate, and pay that off, and pay what you can on that one, and pay the minimums on the rest. And then when that first one is paid off, because it's got the smallest balance, now take that payment and add it to the next one. And that begins that snowball effect of down, down, down. The other one, like you were mentioning, is called the avalanche method, where you pay the highest interest rate. So, which is fine. And if you do the math, most of the time it comes out pretty close to the same. Good. But psychologically, when you're paying off the smallest debt, now you say, oh, we're making progress, and that gets people motivated to keep going.
Yeah, and that's the one I would choose all the time, I've got credit cards, but I pay them off on a weekly basis.
Good, that's even better. Right.
And I've made just this year alone on my personal credit card, because I have one for my business, I've made over or close to 500. I may have even made over $500 cash just by the fact that I pay it off, put it on, pay
Oh,
it off,
get
put
the
it on,
cash
pay it off.
back kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
The cash
Nice,
back. I've made
nice.
almost $500 on that.
Yeah, very good,
So,
very good.
but and then I don't owe on any of those. And I'm at a point where starting this next year, the smallest one I've got, which is that school loan, will start getting its little extra and get that paid
There
down.
you
So
go.
do that.
Perfect. What I've been able to do is, speaking of credit cards, one little trick that I do, and I talk about, I don't know if anybody else does it. So, well, it's kind of two things. First of all, I have, a Discover card that I use frequently for stuff, and that gets a decent amount of cash back. And I can't tell you the last time I actually used real money to buy anything on Amazon. It's always been with the cash back money, right? The other thing that I do is, if it's a store, like a store card, like a Best Buy or Home Depot, one of those kind of things, you can always, I can't say always, but at least I can, but you get a interest free for 12 months, 18 months, whatever the deal is, and if you pay it off in that time, you're good. So in fact, I bought a load of wood pellets for my pellet stove, which is crying away there right downstairs. And I think it's like $300, I think, for a pallet of pellets. So I divided it up, and it's like $60 a month or even less, I think. I forget what it is. Anyway, it goes automatically every month. They get the minimum amount. And by the 11th month, it's paid off, paid no interest. And I'm just using regular cash flow to pay it off instead of coming up with $400 or $300, whatever it is. All this stuff.
Yeah, and that's how I bought the appliances for
Perfect.
not this home, but the home I had before.
Yeah,
And we got it paid off, way in advance. It's
yeah,
also how I bought my bedroom set, got it paid off way before.
yeah.
So it's just a way to use, the way I learned is I learned this term from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but use other people's money,
Other people's money, exactly.
OPM,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
other people's money. And that's, like you were using, that's where I've done um my spending of my money is on Amazon too. I laugh
Yeah.
when you see that. But I've ended up like when I say I'm close to 500, I'll be over $500 by the end of this month because Christmas, I bought Christmas. So now I've got an extra $100
Oh,
that's
good.
about right there. That's free money.
Right.
It's free, other people's money. It's free money. I'm
Well,
not paying any on it. I got more from that than I did from my interest in the money that would have been in a bank account. So
yeah, sure, sure.
so so if you do it right, it'll pay off.
The other thing kind of related to that is, which I have to kick people in the butt for sometimes. If you work at a company and have a 401k plan that has a match, you want to put in, contribute as much as you can to get the maximum match that the company will give you. So there's another way for free money. And sometimes we'll see the employees, if the match is 3%, they'll put in like 1%. I said, what are you doing? You're going to get more money. So we have to, it's really all about, education stuff. And people complain about bitch and moan about, I don't have the money, I got to do this, that, and the other thing. But once you kind of explain it a little bit, then hopefully it sinks in. Sometimes it takes a little while to do, but we make some progress. The other thing is I've started up, we do retirement plans for a variety of companies. And when we get a new employee, we try to get them started on the plan, whatever it's a 401k or simple IRA or whatever kind of works for them. And at least for us, most of the time, the minimum you can do is like $50 a month. Which, for a lot of people is, well, I shouldn't say, I don't want to generalize, but for some people it's easy. For some people it's not so easy. So I said, look, just do it. Do it a couple of months. Trust me, oh, I can't afford it, this or that. And they'll bitch and moan and do all kinds of stuff. So I said, look, let's just go with it. Trust me for a little while, a couple of months. And invariably we'll come back in a couple of months and, I'll say, so how's that $50 working for you? Was it a problem? And they said, I totally forgot about it. Good. Now we're making it 75. I won't, not all the time, but, we'll kind of joke about it a little bit. And then when they see their balance after 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it is, they have no idea that it gains that much. Not just with the match, with the investments we use are really good investments. So they're earning money from the investments. They're doubling their money from the company match by doing the 3%. So, I mean, they're thrilled. Once you really got to put the numbers in front of people, and it's their money. Once they realize it's their money that's growing like this, then they get motivated to move forward. That's the biggest challenge we have, is to get that message across.
Yeah, I look over the stuff with my dad and his spending and stuff, and I can tell you that the way that he sees it is, it's mine. I'm not going to share it with anybody. I'm not going to give it to the insurance guy. I'm not going to give it to Uncle Sam. I'm not going to give it to this or to my medical insurance. I'm not going to give it. I'm going to spend it. And he did. He spent several $1,000,000 in the last 20 years.
Oh my God.
And he has literally nothing to show for it. And he's going to die because he didn't keep his life insurance up, so his wife is not going to have a life insurance policy like I was lucky. She's only going to get his like $400 or $600 Social Security, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You can't help everybody. So all we can do is all we can do.
And it's kind of funny, you're talking about the stuff that you can help people with, but going back to my dad again, is he had this farm and it was the golden goose. And had he just paid his son or his son-in-law to take care of it, paid them well, he could have 3 times the money that he had here these last 20 years. 3 times the money.
All that shoulda, coulda, woulda,
Yeah. Well, and you still can't to this day tell him that he could have. It's just not something he can do.
Okay.
It's just, it's that people. And that's where the knowledge that you have, that you're teaching people, is so important. That's the part that makes your financial advising better, different, and helpful, more helpful than just random knowledge. It's specific knowledge for the individual.
For them. And I think what goes a long way, which I didn't really realize at the beginning when I started, this whole journey in this business, was that the story is what mattered. And help, when people I'm just like them, I'm just like you, just like your husband was, we're all in, it's all the same thing. And when you hear somebody else can do it, can come from whatever, some issue and solve it and then move forward and now can help other people, that goes a long way in a little bit of credibility, I like to think, helping people out.
Yeah. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So, as we get ready to come to the end, I know that all of your contact information will be below.
Okay.
And I know that you have an offer that you have for everybody. So can you share that offer with everybody?
Yeah, sure. We actually have a couple of I'll call them complimentary gifts giveaway. I can't really show a picture now, but we have a booklet called How Money Works, and it's about 30 pages or so, but it covers a whole variety of topics that are relevant to families, like investments and debts and life insurance and all those things. Very easy to read and very easy to follow along. We'll email that to everybody. And we have two sort of finance apps. One is called B Dollar Smart, the letter B and the $ smart. And that's kind of an assessment is how we start with people. So think of it this, I just described the process is we send a link, I'm here, you're there. I send a link to your phone, open it up and answer a bunch of questions about your finances. And when you're all finished, show you a variety of ways to improve your finances. Could be, go to the HR person at your job. You've got assets at a previous employer you forgot about. You got all kinds of debt. Whatever the story is, this will uncover things you've kind of forgot about. So that's really good. And then we just kind of go through the motions and can we fix that? Do you want to fix that? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? So we'll find out what's important to them based on what their own situation is. So things they didn't even realize. I had one guy earlier, I think it was earlier last year, I think it was actually. There was a guy I did an IRA for 10 years almost, And so we sat with him for a little while, went through the app, and it turned out he's a chef. Speaking of which, he's a chef, and he was working in Las Vegas. Now he's in New York, but he was in Las Vegas for a couple of years. And he said, I totally forgot about that 401k when I worked in Las Vegas. And it turned out we took the money, rolled it over, and now it's more in his control. It's like $100,000 he found that he literally forgot about. And I've known him for 10 years. It just never came up because I didn't ask and he wasn't thinking about it. So anyway, that kind of stuff pops up all the time. And the other piece is, so that gets the ball started, right? The next piece after that, if we need to, we have what's called a financial needs analysis report, and that where we collect all the data that goes along with what came out of the app. And then we can look at that big picture and say, okay, we can do this over here, slide this over here, and look this over here, all kinds of stuff, and take all these puzzle pieces and put them together so we paint a nice, pretty scene when we're open.
Awesome. Great gifts to get. So, and how do they go about getting those, Howard?
We can just have a phone call. You got my phone number there, right? Or email, whatever kind of works for people. You can communicate with me lots of different ways. Not smoke signals. That doesn't work so much anymore.
So go ahead and give your phone number.
Oh, sure. I know what you're going to do. Sure. 845-531-9222. That goes to this little device right here, and I answer it as fast as I can.
And I can tell you he does a better job at answering his phone than I do my phone. My phone is always on do not disturb, and I'm always with the client or I'm on whatever I'm doing. So he does a better job. So very good. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a certified high conflict divorce coach. That means that I have been taught how to handle the high conflict, the narcissistic abuse, and all of that goes with high conflict, specifically the communication. Not only that, but I've also lived it. I watched my father help my father out of that. And my late husband was tortured in his situation.
Oh my God.
I read miles of paperwork of proof of that. And because I've been trained and because I've lived it, that helps me to understand your high conflict divorce. You can reach me through my email at coachtinalyn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinaLYNN@gmail.com. You can also text me at 719-580-6684. You can look at my website at divorcecoachspecialist.com. I'm also on social media, Facebook at Tina Lynn Huggins, that's Huggins, LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, and TikTok under Divorce Tina. So Howard, at this point, I always ask our guests to give us a last minute piece of advice for our viewers.
I think the one thing that I don't want to say it comes up frequently, but when I hear someone say, "Yeah, we're fine. We don't need any help," and go, I know they're in the worst case, the worst shape ever, and they're just embarrassed. It's like going to the doctor for the first time, or and it's definitely, and it shouldn't be. I want to say, having issues with your finances is not uncommon, and it's not something to be embarrassed about. It's not your fault that you're in the situation you're in, and we can help you get out of it. And that's the idea. Just like the realtor we were talking about.
Yes. So And my advice here is very much like Howard's, is that just take a deep breath. Just take that step forward
Hmm.
and ask Howard, get help with your finances, because if you wait one more day, that one more day turns into a week, a month, a
Yeah,
year,
that's right.
and now you're in worse shape. So just reach out, ask for that help. Put blinders on, all of this kind of stuff.
That's
Just
right.
pretend, nobody really cares, because the reality is Howard's been there. He understands. I know.
You've
I
been there
was
too. Yeah.
homeless for a while.
Mhm.
So make sure that you reach out. Just give up the pride and ask for help.
Mhm. Yeah, Tina, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the time and effort and talking to all your viewers here. This will be a lot of fun. Mhm.
Very, very good. And so one of the last things that I tell people is that, many people, including myself, get to a point when they're going through divorce that suicide is an option in their
Mm.
mind. So that's not a place that any of us should be. And if you are there or you get there, get help. Get somebody to help walk you back off that ledge, because tomorrow is going to be a new day and tomorrow gets better. So call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Real simple, 988. So just pick up your phone, like Howard says, dial 988. Somebody will be there. They'll listen to you and they'll help you walk through this dark moment. If you're in a situation where you need the police there, call 911. When the abuser is there and the cops there, press charges. Those charges are your key out of that abuse.
Mm.
Don't drop those charges. Once you drop those charges, oftentimes the abuse that comes after the charges are dropped are much worse than you experienced before the charges. Keep the charges in place, get a restraining order, and keep them away from you and go through the process. You can also call the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 800-799-7233. If this has been helpful for you, please like, comment, and share so that it can help others. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Howard.
Thanks, Tina. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.